The shortcut. A truck driver was driving cargo from the outback to the coast. His load was comprised of many types of ore. He needed a huge truck to carry its bulk to a ship waiting at a pier on the country's eastern coast. At the border between two counties, he'd have to pay a tariff on the cargo. However, he could keep his money if he avoided the station at the border. He worried about getting in trouble for not paying the tariff, but the thought of extra money outweighed this concern. He took out his road map. To his surprise, it depicted a small road that had a dual advantage. It not only avoided the border station, but also was a shorter route to the coast. He decided to take the shortcut. However, along his journey, he soon ran into problems. First, he had to cross a small wooden bridge. His truck weighed too much for the bridge. It was analogous to an elephant trying to stand on a tree branch. The bridge started to break as the truck crossed, and the trailer tilted to the right. Fortunately, the truck made it safely across, but most of the ore fell into the river below. Next, it was a very hot day. The thermometer read over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. The truck's engine became too hot, so the driver parked it in the shade of a grove of trees until it cooled down. Later, he took a wrong turn. He stopped and took out his binoculars. He scanned his surroundings and eventually discovered a landmark that led him back to the proper route. Finally, he arrived at the pier, but the ship wasn't there. When he asked about the ship's whereabouts, a man said that it had left 30 minutes ago. He had not fulfilled his duty. He realized then the paradox of the shortcut. The shortest route can be the longest, and vice versa. A long route may be the fastest. Dangerous rescues are part of job for Coast Guard.
Sailor Mitch Powell, en route from San Diego, went into diabetic shock 18 miles, 29 kilometers off the coast of Oregon, an hour before sundown. Stranded aboard his crippled 30-foot, 9-meter yacht Sway, his last words to the Chetco River Station Coast Guard, in Harbor, Oregon, were, "I can't feel my legs. I'm going into shock." The rescue effort, aggravated by 15-foot, 4.5-meter seas, chilling winds at 35 knots, and the fading rays of daylight, was going to be one of the most challenging that year. The Chetco River Station, where the average age of the nearly 50 guardsmen is just 25 years old, is a breeding ground for tough work and hair-raising rescues. Established in 1961, Chetco is just one of dozens of Coast Guard stations along the Pacific Northwest, an area extending from Northern California to the tip of Alaska. Every year, some of the most radical rescue operations in the world take place along the Oregon, Washington, and Alaskan coastlines. There's no question about it. We have some of the most difficult weather and rough seas anywhere on the planet, said 44-year-old Master Chief Boatswain James Bankson, the 25-year Coast Guard veteran, in charge of the Chetco River Station. Add freezing water, fog, and darkness to a rescue, like the Sway, and it becomes a very dangerous situation for everyone involved. Wild rescue. As night fell, the circumstances of the vessel's Sway and its captain worsened. Rising seas and darkness took their toll. Unable to board the Sway due to violence of the waves and the yacht's broken mast swinging about wildly, Chetco's primary vessel, a 47-foot, 14-meter, million-dollar aluminum motorboat known as number 47,237, was forced to motor at a 22-yard, 20-meter radius around the flailing yacht. Medical attention to Powell would have to wait until a safer approach was determined. Boat 47237 was soon joined by an identical boat from Oregon's Rogue River Detachment Coast Guard Unit, 35 miles, 56 kilometers away from Sway's coordinates. A 23-foot utility boat and a Coast Guard HH-65A Dolphin helicopter used primarily to illuminate the chaotic scene with its powerful overhead spotlight, also joined the rescue. Divers were never allowed to swim to the Sway because they might be lost in the darkness or crack their skulls on the hull of the rocking sailboat. In the end, the utility boat, captained by Bankson, was able to pull up along Sway for an instant and allow Coast Guard serviceman Tom Wonder and medic Chris Dodson to jump aboard without getting into the water or being hit by the swinging mast. "It was my first rescue that involved a helicopter," said Crystal Castle, a 20-year-old third-class boatswain mate from the Chetco River Station. A helicopter really makes a rescue that is much more dynamic and intense, especially in the dark, when the noise of the helicopter, ocean, and boat engines are roaring, and the spotlights are flashing everywhere. Treacherous waters. Many rescues. A rescue of this magnitude is not uncommon along this stretch of coast. The Chetco River Station alone accomplished 225 search and rescue missions in 2003, saving 27 lives, said Bankson. Many of the most dangerous rescues involved commercial fishermen, whose wooden or rusty boats are not always up to par. Commercial fishing for crab, salmon, and tuna along the Pacific Northwest thrives, and fishermen number in the thousands. I've been involved in a couple incidents where the Coast Guard helped save boats and crew, said John Fraser, a commercial fisherman based in Harbor, Oregon, and captain of the 41-foot, 12.5-meter wooden boat Njord. The weather can be tough in this area and change at a moment's notice. It's nice to have the Coast Guard standing by a radio 24 hours a day, listening for any distress calls. The Pacific Northwest Coast Guard, like all other Coast Guard groups in America, is a branch of the armed services. During peacetime, the Coast Guard operates as part of the Department of Homeland Security, and during wartime, it falls under direction of the Navy. Coast Guards were used in the war efforts in Iraq, and all recruits, whether in wartime or not, are trained to use firearms. With about 40,000 personnel, the Coast Guard has recently taken on a greater role in national security after September 11, 2001. The United States government is utilizing the Guardsmen to more closely patrol and protect its coastlines from possible terrorist attacks and intrusions. National defense. Mostly what we do is rescues, said Lieutenant Commander Thomas Durand, of the Group Air Station Surface Operation in North Bend, Oregon. But our other duties depend on a wide range of factors and can involve keeping foreign fishermen out of our waters and searching boats for terrorists' weapons. They are also charged with responding to hazardous chemical spills, educating people in boating safety, and intercepting illegal immigrants at sea. At the Chetco River Station, Bankson recommended 6 Coast Guard Achievement Medals be awarded to his staff for their efforts in saving Mitch Powell. Just after 1 o'clock in the morning, Sway was towed into Brookings Harbor, Oregon, where Powell was taken to a hospital and eventually made a full recovery. Sometimes this job can be scary and life-threatening, but that's the nature of the job and we have to do it, said Castle. It's a great feeling to rescue people and know you really helped someone.
The Lord and the Farmers. A wealthy lord was renovating his mansion. He had added another story to his home with large windows that overlooked the farmers' pastures on the eastern border of his land. Around the mansion, he then erected a great wall. He built an arch for the gate, out of huge slabs of stone. The Lord was overjoyed with the addition to his home. However, one day while he was sitting on the terrace, some farmers knocked at his door. He invited them in. Despite his hospitality, the farmers appeared to be in a foul mood. "Why are you so upset?" the Lord asked. One farmer replied, "That is actually the reason for our visit." He then handed the Lord a petition. It alleged that the shadow cast by the mansion was harming their pastures. "Your mansion now casts a shadow "Over several hectares of our land," the farmer explained. "The turf in the shadow has died, and our cattle now have less grass to eat." "It is too late for me to revise my plans," the Lord answered. "You will just have to live with the change." His reply only heightened the farmer's anger. They left, but they assembled that night outside the mansion's gate. They planned to destroy the mansion. The Lord's servants tried to defend the house, but the farmers outnumbered them. The servants fled, and the farmers rushed into the mansion and set it on fire. Everyone got out of the house, and there were no casualties. However, the fire soon spread from the house to the adjoining pastures that belonged to the farmers. Both sides' properties were destroyed. The Lord and the farmers were sorry for their actions. The Lord promised to pay for the burned pastures, and the farmers promised to rebuild the mansion. They had learned that when you fight, both sides lose.